Hey everyone, Chris Johnson with Money Morning. SoundHound shares are trading down 13% since they peaked at $17 last week. Is it time to buy right now? I've got the charts as well as the open interest configuration that show you two buy the dip prices. One of them is the price where I back the truck up and buy SoundHound for the long term. Stick with me for 15 minutes. I'll teach you something new and you're going to be a better investor for it and get a great opportunity to buy the dip in SoundHound. Let's jump into it. All right, let's jump into SoundHound very quickly because I've got a lot of people asking me what is going on. The stock just hit $17 and now it's pulling back 14%. Is this when I should be selling this name? The answer is no. It all comes down to this chart. I'll tease it for just a second, but we'll get into the details on where you want to be looking to buy the dip. If you're trading SoundHound, sure, maybe you want to take some profits, but keep in mind, it is going to take off just as fast as it did last week. And let's look at the little timeline that we've got here that's happened with SoundHound shares. We're looking right now at a 6-month chart, somewhere around 6 months or so, and you can see that this 13.4% pullback is just one in a series of those that we see with SoundHound. Why is this? Well, think about it. It's an early innovator, an early developer. They're still in that phase where they're trying to get revenue, where they're trying to get everything in the door so that we can see that growth coming to fruition for the company, and all the early speculative investors are getting paid off. Well, that's exactly what happened. When you look at this timeline and these pullbacks, we expect volatility. And I say volatility is a trader's best friend. How about for investors? When they see these type of pullbacks, what do they think? Should I buy, sell? Yes, the answer is you should buy. Hold on through the volatility. Look at this. This is the reason why we've seen it. Last week, we saw the company come out and release their latest earnings results. And it really wasn't that good if you were looking at it from an earnings per share basis. They came in lower than expectations, but there was something in here that was much, much, much better than what the market was anticipating. And when we look at this, what you're seeing is those red bars are the performance for the 2 weeks following the earnings announcement. Notice that we saw actual earnings per share go down into the loss column even further right now, and they missed analyst targets. So it wasn't a good look until you look at this, which is the revenue that we're seeing on a year-over-year basis. In SoundHound's case, the last 3 quarters, we've seen 100% growth year-over-year in revenue, then 150% growth, and now we're right around 209, 210% year-over-year growth. I talk about speculative companies often and how you need to keep your eye out on the horizon with companies like Palantir. Everybody was banging on because, hey, they weren't showing revenue. Well, guess what? Now they're starting to see that type of revenue growth that grows into the valuation. In the case of SoundHound, now we're seeing that happen. The company's got that funnel of business that's coming in, and they're signing more and more deals. NVIDIA got out of that deal where they had part ownership in SoundHound. My guess is they're wishing they were back there now. We're not back at the all-time highs, right around that $25 level, but $17 right now with some good technicals tells me that we've got momentum that's going to keep going. And on top of this, we saw some other positives. Not only did we see 200% year-over-year revenue growth from the company, but we got a company that gave us guidance that was better than expectations. So now that earnings per share number that came out that was below expectations, it starts to get off by what the company is seeing looking forward. This is one of those important things that every investor should keep in mind. You're not investing on where the earnings per share were last quarter or even last week or so. You're investing on where the company is going. I always bring up the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and talk about he always skated to where the puck was going to be. That's exactly your job and my job as investors. We want to invest in the company for where it's going to be, not where it was just a couple weeks ago, a couple years ago. SoundHound's been all over the place. That $25 price that we saw as an all-time high is going to be something that's out there on the horizon. I'm keeping my eye on that. So we saw that upside guidance for fiscal year 2025 on both the earnings per share and the revenue. The company jacking everything up, saying, hey, that funnel is now providing the business that we need. We saw a couple of upgrades from Wall Street as well. Northland Capital came out, Ladenburg Thalmann came out, and they both upgraded their prices. Now you'll notice that their price is right now $16, and you've also got a $14.50. The average price on Wall Street's around $13.52 right now, so the stock is still trading about 3-4% above that. But this is the thing that we need to keep watching. You now have analysts that are upgrading their targets and saying that they're going to do better. That is what moves the needle in terms of sentiment and gets more investors bullish on the stock. And as a result of everything that we saw during this timeline, and this is just over a week or so, we saw the options market start to fire up to its optimism, starting to put bets on, and these are options that are expiring very quickly, but those 13.5 calls, which saw a lot of activity, and we're also seeing a lot of activity up on the 20 strike in the September and October series. We're going to look at that in just a second. Did I mention that SoundHound is one of my magnificent, or let's call them the Spectacular Seven stocks? So you can call them Speculative Seven, whatever you want. This is one of the companies that's going to replace the Mag 7 stocks down the road here. They are early innovators, everything from eVTOL to nuclear stocks to quantum computing, and yeah, SoundHound is in there. Click below to get the report on the Speculative 7 that I've got out there. It's free and it gives you a lot of information on these industries and where they're going. But let's kind of take a look at what is going on beyond the options market here and answer the question why the stock is pulling back. And to do that, you need to look at the technicals. And what we saw just last week was what I refer to as a crescendo top. This is a textbook situation for a company like SoundHound in this case. 3 things happen. 1, 2, and 3. And I'll explain them all on this chart, just so that you can read along with me. The 3 components of the crescendo top are the prices surge outside of their top Bollinger Band. The detail tells you that stock is trading with statistically unusual price movement. And whether you know it or not, stock prices have to follow all the rules of math. It is truly that simple. So whenever we see some sort of volatility, up or down, that breaks outside of those Bollinger Bands, which measures the price, the actual volatility of that stock, it just tells you that you have to see a regression to the mean. Everything has to come back to the averages. That's number 1. Number 2, you see a spike in buying volume as the crowd is quickly rushing into that stock. And then number 3, short-term overbought signals like the RSI. I use a 21-day RSI. And the reason for that very quickly is a 10-day RSI or a 9-day RSI just moves too quickly. It doesn't catch the essence of investing. It catches the essence of trading. So for that reason, I actually use a 21-day. And you'll see in this chart, when we go back and look at those 3 things, there is your move above the top Bollinger Band telling you that the stock cannot continue to be this mathematically off the charts. Second is that huge spike in volume. Everybody's buying. That means all the buying power has been exhausted very quickly. And then the third is that overbought reading of the RSI. The 21-day, you'll notice it doesn't get overbought here, doesn't get overbought here after these pull-ups. So it's not a crescendo top, but the 3 of these together tells you that the stock now needs a healthy correction. It is nothing more than that. A healthy correction, which means you get an opportunity to buy the dip. Those healthy corrections turn into buy the dip opportunities. So what do we watch for? And I'm going to show you the chart here in just a second. You want to watch for that overbought RSI reading to come back down below 70. It tells you that the heat, it's now all the buying power has been spent. It's been exhausted. The sellers are taking the stock lower. And at some point, you're going to start to balance out and go back up higher again. So the first thing is we get that overbought RSI reading out of the way. Second, we want to see volume slow down to a trickle, and you'll see it in the chart here in just a second. We don't want to see a lot of volume because it means that all that selling pressure that was there when the stock was at 17, all the short-term traders taking those profits, it's been exhausted as well. And when it has, all of a sudden the buyers can come in with a little bit of volume and start to tip the scales towards the stock moving higher. And then the third thing is we want to see technical support, some sort of level that the market can hang its hat on and say, yeah, there's going to be a meaningful rally from there. When you have those three things, you have got the opportunity to buy that dip. And I always watch for volume to start increasing after I get those signals. It tells me that everybody is re-engaging that stock and they're moving in, which is going to drive it higher. So you take all of that and put it back into that chart that we saw just a few minutes ago. And as I already mentioned, you're down 13%. We have seen those 27% corrections from SoundHound 3 times here in the last 4 months. So a 20% correction is not a big deal. Turns into an opportunity. We've got that 50 and that 200-day moving average that are in a bullish pattern. That tells me that this is a stock that has 2 to 3 chance it's going to close higher the next day. Not doing it right now because it's part of that healthy correction. But if you look here, you've got another little move down to that $13 level, which is also the tops. And you squint right here, but the tops from where we see the last tops in the stock, right? So this is now a level that the market's going to look at and say that we closed the gap technically, and you'll see buyers start to kick in and take that stock higher, bid the stock higher. So there's your first level. That $13 level is where I say the first buy the dip opportunity has, and that would be a 24% pullback from SoundHound, which would match right along with those 20 and 27% pullbacks that we've seen in the stock. What does the options market say, though? And these are the charts that everybody loves. Well, it actually backs me up a little bit, but draws an even deeper discount line for the stock. What I mean is when you look at $13, just doesn't stand out the way that I like to see it, and the calls are balanced out with the puts. Typically, we like to see put strikes like this in that open interest that are obscenely high compared to the calls. That means that there's a lot more potential for the stock to get hedged as it goes lower, and it adds buying power, buying pressure to the stock as you start to get down to those levels. We've seen that with Archer Aviation, which has been bouncing between $9.50 and $10, not wanting to give up that level because it has open interest that looks like this. So for this reason, I look at that 13 and say that's the first level. But if we break that and move back down to 11, this is the point where I just simply back up the truck. If I'm looking to add to a position, double up on my position, in that particular case on SoundHound, that's the price that I look at, $11. And when I look at that $11 and go out to the October, the first slide was September, but the October, it kind of disappears here, which tells me that the stock is going to have a little bit of overhead pressure as we trade our way through October. And you've got, obviously, the seasonality trade winds that blow against almost everything out there. You've got everybody that has turned bullish on this stock as we head to October. So I'm very aware of that, and I trade it as if it's going to trade up to that $17 to $20 range and then maybe get a little bit stagnant there as we get through the end of the dog days of summer. But keep that 10 or that $13 and $11 in mind, and I'll point out here that when you get to that $11, it's right where that 50 and that 200-day moving average sits. So not only do you have those strong technicals, but you also have that huge amount of put open interest at the $11. Hits $11. I personally, who I am long SoundHound right now, have been for some time since it is in that Speculative Seven report. But at that point, I start to add more to the position with the target of the stock going to $22, $20, somewhere in that range. And then I see it even moving higher as we head towards the end of the year. Let's look at the short-term trading outlook for SoundHound as I see it. So this current correction finds support at $13 and $11, with 11 serving as that strong buy the dip price. I expect the stock to run back up towards that $17 high that we saw follow the earning. Expect also to see Wall Street Analyst upgrading the stock as well. Seasonality is going to be weak through the summer. I think that $20 would slow us down if we popped above that during the month of September. Seasonality turns weak in the summer, so it's going to stall some of those speculative names like SoundHound, Archer Aviation, Joby Aviation, etc. So expect some consolidation and volatile sideways tradings. But remember, traders love volatility. Volatility equals opportunity for traders. October option activity suggests that the stock has a path to 20 bucks, but not much higher than that until we get towards their next earnings announcement. And then the long-term bull case remains. The SoundHound is trending towards a $30 price tag. I see that in the next 6 to 12 months, especially with this revenue growing the way it is for SoundHound. There you have it. Another great example of the options open interest coming into play, but technically that $13 level being the tops for SoundHound when we saw the last couple of pullbacks, now turning into a little bit of support for it as it pulls back from that $17. The fundamentals are now driving the stock higher, as well as speculative technical activity. Keep checking in on me here at the YouTube channel. MoneyMorning.com is where you'll find me writing about these stocks. Don't forget to get your Speculative 7 report right down below. Again, it's the eVTOL companies, it's nuclear AI companies, it's quantum computer companies, and yeah, SoundHound is in there as well. I look forward to seeing you the next time, and as always, I wish you the best trading success. Have a great day, guys.